Happy Monday, if there is such a thing as a happy Monday. Welcome to the Sci-Fi Center Live. This is a very abbreviated overnight edition, only because due to me just feeling like shit last night, I failed to do my usual Saturday night um, occasion with you guys, and it really sucked. Like I said, I'm still feeling a little bit like shit. Blood pressure issues, maybe, just a lot of stuff going on. Just did felt like I needed to slow down last night. So here I am back again doing a Sunday night show. Some stuff to talk about. We will bring up some of the images that came from the Flash at the CXDX thing in South America. Also, we'll be going over the article about Marvel phases 5 and 6 being delayed so that they can concentrate on quality over quantity. Be honest with you, I'm sort of happy to hear that. As somebody who has seen pretty much every Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, the one issue that I've always had with Marvel is it's too cluttered. There's too much stuff going on, and it's a big difference when you're telling these stories in a comic book medium versus when you're trying to tell them and you only have 2.5 hours to 3 hours and 2 or 3 movies a year to tell them in. There's just too much clutter in the Marvel universe. And whenever I hear somebody say, oh, we need to get this guy in the MCU, we need to get that guy in the MCU, it's like you already have a meal with too much shit on the plate to begin with, and you want to add more shit. Eventually, it starts bleeding into the parts of the meal, start mixing to each other, and it doesn't taste good anymore. It literally tastes like shit. So I'm happy to hear that they're going to slow down. I would like to see them streamline this whole thing. There's way too many characters in the MCU right now. And like I said, they got to start listening to their own minds and the people who actually make movies. Don't go by fanboy logic. Fanboy logic, especially Marvel fanboys, want every single character that they can scoop up off the ground and throw into that big salad bowl. And not every character fits. It's not the time to have every character. We often hear the same thing with Miles Morales. Oh, we got to have Miles Morales in the MCU. I would rather drink out of the toilet at this stage at Marvel than see Miles Morales in the MCU because he's just another thing in your refrigerator that you threw into a garbage salad. Cut down on some of the stuff. Focus on the stuff that works. I mean, focus on the core groups that work. I mean, right now they're about to head into a mess with the entire Kang dynasty, which I'm sort of looking forward to. But at the same time, if it's handled like the Infinity Saga, it's going to be a headache, and it's going to be a cluttered headache. So I'm glad to see them taking some moves to see if they can shave some of these movies off. I looked at their slate at Comic-Con. You could do without 4 or 5 of those movies and still tell your story. So let me go into the chat because I know I've neglected them over the past couple of days. All right, yeah, sorry for you guys. I had a Christmas party also that I attended that I was supposed to be on at 11, and it just kept getting pushed and pushed and pushed, and finally I got out of there. And as soon as I got out of there, I got back on track and decided to push it to 11:40, and then I had to push it to 12:05 so I get the thumbnail ready. All right, so. How you doing, Krampus? Music Man, what's going on? Yeah. I just needed, like I said, it was just felt like my head was going to explode yesterday, and I was just exhausted. And like I said, I'm still feeling the effects. I really didn't need to go to the damn Christmas party, but they had a raffle, and I'm a cheap ass. If I can win my parents Christmas gifts at a Christmas party, hey, save me a couple bucks, man. Just have to rewrap and regift. I like Miles. I like Miles as a solitary character. I really do not want to see him be an errand boy to some other superhero. I think the strength of Spider-Man, both Peter Parker and Miles Morales, is the fact that they are solitary individuals that have to come up with their own solutions for the most part on their own or with a very close, tight-knit circle of people around him. In the case of Miles Morales, he has other spider people that are going through the same thing, but they're within that universe. Miles Morales doesn't need Iron Man. Miles Morales doesn't need Thor. Miles Morales doesn't need Captain America. Spider-Man doesn't need those characters. So for the narrative of the character, Kevin Feige did what he wanted to do and what he needed to do to tell his story. That doesn't necessarily mean it was true to what Spider-Man is. And I know not everything is comic book accurate, but when you have something that is within the DNA of the character, Peter Parker is a genius level. He was an outcast. One of the things that made it great is that when he put on that mask, he was someone else, and all those things were shed when he became a Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. It was 8 years before Spider-Man even went into space. And Spider-Man was never an Avenger until the late 2000s when they, quite honest with you, they were putting out bad stories and they were desperate. They even put Wolverine as an Avenger, which tells you how desperate they were. So Spider-Man was always the one that you came to, or he was a guest in your book, but he was never on your team. And they even created a comic book just to keep that from happening called Marvel Team Up, so that you could put guys like Doctor Strange and Captain America next to Spider-Man without having to absorb them into your team, because Stan Lee never wanted Spider-Man as part of a team that way. Otherwise, he would have put him on Fantastic Four decades earlier than some of the guest appearances. So no, I do not want to see Miles Morales. Sony, to be honest with you, Sony has done the work. Everything good that has come from Miles Morales has come from Sony. And the people who are going to be doing, handling things with them are people that have won Academy Awards handling Miles Morales. So I don't think there's nothing that that any other studio can give Sony in regards to Miles Morales that they haven't already spent the last 10 years developing. So I'm with you there. How you doing, Ozymandias? I always say Ozymandias. I don't know why. Eric Patterson, what's going on, dude? How you doing? All right, that's why I feel Miles. He's just a copy of Peter in the MCU. They try to make Peter like Tony. He seems to himself at the end of No Way Home, but still, yeah. But that's a problem. Is though Peter Parker would never need anything from Tony Stark. In fact, the nature of what Peter Parker is, he would be polite to Tony Stark, but he wouldn't associate it with him like that, because at that point Tony's a conceited asshole, and that's part of what the evolution of Iron Man is. You see the evolution when he comes. Peter Parker wouldn't give that guy time of day. He never needed Iron Man for any technology. He damn sure didn't need Iron Man for his suit. That was one of the things that made Spider-Man so cool, is because any of us, aside from being able to stick to walls and do all that stuff, every teenager was going through some sort of thing where they were isolated or whatever, and they had to come up with their own solution. Peter Parker came up with his own webbing. He came up with his own costume. He came up with his own problem solving. He didn't need anybody to do that. And it really pained me for all those years to see him basically ride the sidecar of every Avenger he was on the screen of. So yeah, Peter is his own person and Miles Morales is his own person. And right now people seem to think that everything that's a comic book movie needs to go through Marvel Studios, and that's bullshit. All right, other companies can make comic book movies. Like I said, the best Spider-Man movies are not from Disney. You can make an argument for No Way Home as being one of the top ones, but the top two for me, No Way Home is number 3, and it's a distant 3. The Into the Spider-Verse, the one that won the 2 Academy Awards, it to me is the best Spider-Man movie. After that, it's followed by one of the great sequels of any superhero series of all time, and that's Spider-Man 2. I'll put Spider-Man 2 against anything Disney's ever put out. So those 2 movies were put out without Disney. And to be honest with you, every live-action Spider-Man movie, it made at least $725 some odd million. I think the lowest may have been 715. So if you adjust those dollars, then you're up there where you needed to be. So they don't need, fanboys think that everyone needs Marvel to take a piss. That's not true, and Marvel does what's right for them. They engineer their situation for their characters and how they do, and that's fine. But other studios, whether they be ones that have, those characters on license, or other studios in general like DC, can do their own thing. The Marvel formula is for Marvel's superheroes and Marvel's movies. It is not for the MCU way is not for every other studio. So I think once we get that infantility out of our head, then we can kind of like look at things and see, hey, you know what? Not every character needs to be under Disney. Yeah, I understand. Trust me, I misspell. I misspeak all the time. Problem with Tom Holland Spider-Man, in my opinion, is he's more like a big boy than a man. To me, Tom Holland Spidey sucks. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I can't blame the character progression is because they took a solitary character that was meant to have a universe revolve around him. Spider-Man is literally the logo of Marvel Comics, and basically took a lot of his independence away in order to tell a much larger story. Tom Holland as Spider-Man is fine. I think if they continue to write him to where he's not basically licking the ball sack of every Avenger, I think that character and him could progress. All right, Spider-Man 2 is still big. Yeah, Spider-Man 2 is one of the great comic book sequels, period. Period. In any era from any company. All right, so one of the things that happened over this hold on, with CXDX, I keep forgetting it. Let's see, CCXP 2022. A couple of things that came out were some flash information, but also a good look at Blue Beetle's logo. So we're gonna go take a look at the. I got a lot of screens open up because I got home just in time to do this for you guys. All right, so and it'll be so easy when I get my Stream Deck hooked up. I will not have to use the share function screen for StreamYards anymore. And there we go. All right, so there it is. You pretty much have a better view of it on my thumbnail because I basically blew up the poster already. But this here is the Blue Beetle's logo. Blue Beetle is due out in it looks like August of 2023, which is not that far away when you look at it. Now, when the mention of Blue Beetle first came around, I thought it was a joke. All right, there you go. All right, so there's the art. You can kind of see it from there. It looks pretty cool. You can kind of see the face of Blue Beetle carved into the actual Blue Beetle himself. If you're scared of insects, sorry. So my original thoughts when I thought Blue Beetle, okay, this is a joke. This is gonna bomb. Why are we even uttering the words blue or beetle before uttering the word Superman, before even mentioning who the DCU Batman is? When are we going to get, we haven't had Superman on the screen for 5 years. Had this movie been released under the Hamada regime, this movie would have bombed. All right. Or underperformed. And it has nothing to do with the quality of the movie. I always say this. People always say, well, just make good movies. And I say, go run into a wall. There are a lot of great movies. There are a lot of really good movies out there, and there are a lot of movies that bomb. All right. Making a good movie, I hate to say this because it sounds like sacrilege. Making a good movie is probably about 25% or less than what, a movie's overall chances of success are. There are a lot of great movies that Hollywood floor is littered with a lot of great movies that didn't make any money or bombed. And if you want to look at a prime example, look at the Oscars. Every year there's Oscars and there's movies that nobody's ever heard of, didn't make any money. The only reason why those movies end up being some type of success and being able to put back in the theaters after they're nominated is because there's a bunch of snobs that nominate these movies no matter how much money they made. All right, Slumdog Millionaire. You might have thought it was a great movie, but most people hadn't heard of Slumdog Millionaire until the night of the Oscars. All right, didn't make a lot of money. Call Me by Your Name, Lady Bird. These are coming of age movies. These are movies that, according to the people who saw them, were really, really great. Didn't make any money until they were released after Oscars. But if you are in the business of just making movies that, for the most part, superhero movies are not going to get nominated for Oscars and get that boost, you have to make sure that your movie is going to be promoted right, that people care about who the character is, that people know who the character is, and that the brand loyalty that is delivering those characters is not damaged as the damage as DC's been in the last 9 years. But one really super important thing that what the current regime is doing right now that is probably the difference between Blue Beetle bombing in the theaters and Blue Beetle having a shot is the slate that is being released around. Because remember, movies like Shazam and Aquaman, these movies have been pushed around. And so Blue Beetle is going to fall right within those movies. Another thing is bringing Henry Cavill back. So not only do you have supporting movies with better known characters that can prop up the brand so something like Blue Beetle can survive, you also have what could be a pending announcement of a Superman movie. So you have the big red S hovering over all this. What that does is that polarizes your brand and gets people to care about what's going on. And you saw it with Black Adam. Yeah, Dwayne Johnson is a huge star, but if people don't care about your brand, the star is not big enough. I mean, there's been plenty of movies. I can name movies where Tom Cruise has been in. Not every Tom Cruise movie has been Top Gun or Mission Impossible. There's huge stars that have bombs, and the reason why is because either the marketing, nobody cared about the character, nobody cared about the IP, nobody cared about the movie, and that's it. You can have the biggest star in the world. If people don't care about what you're selling, it's not going to do enough. And I always hear people say, well, Blue Beetle, word of mouth will help it. Listen, in order to have word of mouth, you have to have a certain volume, a certain amount of people to see your movie for that word of mouth to spread like it would need to. And that wasn't going to happen with Blue Beetle. All right. Blue Beetle was on its way, in my opinion, and suffering the same fate as Shazam. And like Shazam's going to, face later on, and Black Adam. You have these characters that no one knew who they were, and you're asking a family, maybe a 4 or 5, to lay down cold hard cash, that investment, just for maybe a star that they might know. That's just not enough. And I think that's been proven over and over again. People actually have to care about not only the characters, but they have to care about the entire universe that you're selling. And I think is now that the universe is being prepared, now it's time for a Blue Beetle. Now it could be time for any of these B or C characters, because you not only you know augmented the slate and rearrange things so that they sit well and they're right in between really what's supposed to be really good movies. I expect Aquaman's going to be pretty good, and everything I'm hearing about the Flash is that it's one of the better movies that they've ever done, and the new regime is really getting behind this movie, and they've already seen it. So like I said, under the Hamada era, this Blue Beetle would have been a Birds of Prey level success, which that's not good. I don't know what the budget for Blue Beetle is, because I think it was originally supposed to be on HBO Max, but James Gunn is promoting it. So like I said, my thoughts have changed about Blue Beetle's success because the management behind it has changed. So I'm feeling good about Blue Beetle now. Still think it's ridiculous, but hey, but I've always said the character in the comics was ridiculous. All right, so let me go see what you guys are thinking about this. Blue Beetle, I'm actually looking forward to it. That logo looks really good, and that's another thing that they didn't do with some of their other stuff is August is quite a whiles away. August is literally 9 months away, and this is the hype that they're doing with Blue Beetle and showing you some of the stuff with Blue Beetle. It needs to ramp up. But I think this new crew of management will do a lot better job at month 1 instead of waiting to month 7 to really offload and really start to promote this movie. But at the same time, the one thing Blue Beetle has that Shazam didn't have and that Black Adam didn't have, it has movies around it. When you get your fans into the rhythm of seeing your product, it helps everything. I always say a rising tide lifts all ships. Blue Beetle is one of the ships that's in your harbor that you need risen. How you doing, man? From down under, long time no see. Hopefully it's good, not obvious. I don't think that these guys who are running the show are just in for cash cab. Even though everybody always says, "Oh, they're hurting for money." By the way, Warner Brothers Discovery is not hurting for money. I've already explained to you, before over and over again, when just because you're making cuts and doing things as far as controlling your budget and writing things off, that has more to do with your debt management plan that helps prop up your stocks and the worth of your company than it does you being broke. As you can clearly see, DC Films, DC Studios, Warner Brothers will spend money on things that matter to them. Things like Batgirl didn't matter to them, so they cut it. Some of the animation department, where the current slate of animation is right now, didn't matter to them, so they cut that, or they farmed it out, which they should have done 20 years ago, 25 years ago. There should have never been a DC animation under DC proper. That should have always been licensed out to companies and firms that animation is a priority to. or somebody who can spend the money and wants to spend that money to make it a top priority, like an Amazon or some other studio where that's what they do. And DC should have just cashed in on licensing it. And I thought that should have always been the case. I thought some of the stuff that DC did could have probably lasted longer, but when they're not, when the corporate guys are not seeing a return on revenue on things, they're going to get rid of it a lot quicker than people who license it out and commit to it. So I'm glad that they've done that. But I don't think that Safran and Gunn are looking for cash grabs simply because I think from everything that they're saying, they're trying to restore the brand. Because until you restore the brand, you're going to continue to have box office results like Birds of Prey, Suicide Squad, Black Adam. Even though Black Adam is still when it's all said and done, it's not going to hurt them at all. And I don't think you'll see a Black Adam too, no problem. But you won't have to struggle against the perception of DC once you establish your DC. And that's why I can't wait for this Bible to be published. All right, can someone in the chat tell me the 1990 Fox animated show was The Flea or Blue Beetle or Red Flea? The Tick? You're talking about The Tick? I think you're talking about The Tick, Darskipio. We will see if the Flash does well. I'm just not hyped. You know what? I don't blame anybody for not being hyped about DC right now. Before James Gunn and them, because of the damage done to the brand. The previous guys did not do you any justice as far as that go. But this new crew has seen the movie, and the new crew is 100% behind it, and I have faith in them. So like I said, if it were Hamada and Sarnoff and Emmerich pushing this on me, I'd be like, okay, yeah, it's just another day at the office. But the fact that guys who seem to have an eye in a mission for quality and cutting things that they don't think is going to hold up the brand, they've kept this. And another thing about Blue Beetle is they've elevated Blue Beetle from HBO Max to this. So that tells me that these guys are looking at things and there's a certain line of quality, and this is where they want that line to be. They don't want anything below that line. So that says a lot of good things about Blue Beetle, but it also says a lot of good things about Flash. These two projects met their standard, and it looks like they have a pretty high standard, higher than what Batgirl was going to put out. Aaron Pritchard, how you doing? It might not do as well as it should have been, but if it was created by the new, I could say that about Black Adam as well. Because to be honest with you, Black Adam suffers from a lot of gaps in story, a lot of gaps in plot. Some special effects could have been done better. A better enemy, a better script, a better everything, probably a better director. But you got to realize who was giving you that. Yeah, had Peter Safran and James Gunn been in charge of that project first, I don't think there would have been a Black Adam yet. I think they would have done Black Adam because that's in their family of characters, especially Safran producing him. But I think they would have done basically what they're doing now. They would have moved things around. They would have made sure that Black Adam set like a pearl in between all these other gems. And you know what? When you set your slate up and you have brand loyalty, you can get away sometimes with a mediocre movie. You can get away with a Captain Marvel when you've gotten a brand loyalty. You can put out a movie and still have people give you the benefit of the doubt. When you put out your slate and it's a strong slate, not everybody has is batting 1,000. So if you have a bad movie amongst 3 or 4 really, really epic ones, then people are going to be like, hey, you know what? I still trust you. With DC, not only were we not getting that, we weren't getting the frequency. I mean, it was years between projects. And then when the project came out, they were throwaway characters that no one knew. So yeah, it's I think that Black Adam, if it had been under them, wouldn't have been released until they had settled who Superman was, Cavill, who the Batman is going to be, how, what their Bible is. And I think Black Adam would have been part of that Bible if they were running the entirety of DC. Now, Seven Buck Production, that's different because they were just making content, producing content for Warner Brothers. But now in their roles as the CEOs, I think I don't see them putting out a Black Adam movie before a Superman movie. And to be honest with you, if there was a Superman movie that was released before a Black Adam movie, Black Adam does better. It's not just about the stars. It's about that brand distinction, that brand loyalty, getting people hyped up when they see that DC Films or DC Studios logo. The same way when they see those pages flip for Marvel at the beginning of those movies, that's what you need to have for DC. And if you have that, when I step out of one DC movie, I'm stepping into the anticipation of the next DC movie and the one after that and the one after that. And you got me hooked. It's like a drug, but a good kind. So, yeah, this new regime is going to be it's really important. It's really important, and it's important that they're going to be given time to flesh things out, and that they're competent enough to where they won't listen to whiny shitheads who say, "This is not my so and so. I'm boycotting you." You know what? Go leave. These guys seem like the guys who know that there's a pulse out there. They know that there's an audience out there for what they're doing, and they're not going to budge based on the silly shit that the previous guys did. So I think the new regime, the stuff that comes out with them, is going to be some epic stuff. And honestly, the four movies that they're going to inherit, they're doing a lot. They can't. Some of these movies are locked, but they're doing a lot to, they can still add stuff. They can still add post-credit scenes. They can still add promos and hype. They can still add shorts and stuff. I mean, there's a lot that Peter Safran and James Gunn can do to heighten even the movies that they didn't work on. So there's that. When you have the right people, hold on here. When you have the right people in charge, there's a lot that you can do. There's a lot that you can do. When you have the wrong people in charge, you can't do anything. I mean, you just can't. You can't function. You can't function. You can't even get people to believe in your project. So let's hope these new guys are on board. So, hi Jared, how you doing? With James Gunn's code DC, I'm looking forward to everything they do. So am I. Like I said, you guys can look at Poindexter Lounge. You guys can look at my own channel, my own stuff. You guys can clearly see that I thought things like Blue Beetle were an absolute joke, because the previous guys were going to use those characters and these B's and C characters as the focal point of the DCU going forward. Here, we know that these guys are going to bring out the big howitzers. They're bringing out the big guns. They're bringing out the Batman, Superman, and so and so. Now I can look at a project like Blue Beetle and like, okay, I'm excited for Blue Beetle because it's not going to be the focal point and the home run hitter that everybody is so desperate. They put all that weight on Black Adam, and that they put their weight on a character that nobody knew, and now we're going to be doing the same thing with Blue Beetle. Blue Beetle is a piece of the puzzle, but he's not the piece of the puzzle. He's not even a major piece of the puzzle. If they do this right, it will fit within their Bible. And that's all you really need Blue Beetle and Black Adam and Shazam to do. They don't need to be the heavy hitters. They just need to be. They just need to do their part to carry on the story. And I just don't think that these previous guys had a plan to do that with. Hey, Chappie, how are you doing? Hope you're doing all right. It's not damage; it's beyond. I don't think so. I mean, I like I said, I can relate, because you've heard me speak ad nauseum about what I think that these guys, how detached they were and how they really, really heard things. But things change. Things can change in an instant. All right, Marvel went from a company that was literally almost in non-existent in the late 90s and 2000 to a company that's doing what they are now. Things change. And what needs to change and what is changing is the perception. And perception can change like that. One day you're shit, the other day next day you're diving. All right, momentum can change identity within days. And all you need to do right now is, not only do they need to make good movies, and like I said, that's 25% of it, but 50 to 60% of it is changing the perception of your brand, getting people to think about what you're doing and not think about what that other guy did. So it can happen. I don't think it's destroyed. It's damaged, but I think it can be fixed, and I think these guys are the ones that do it. Yeah, the Tick Spoon. Yeah, that comic was huge back in the 90s, man. Okay, Chappie is asking me, by the way, William, can you please explain why Die Hard isn't a Christmas movie? All right, so let me go ahead and get Blue Beetle off the screen, because I really want to be full screen on this one. All right, Chappie. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie because the only thing Christmas about it is when it takes place and that there's a Christmas party. If you remove those elements out of the movie still goes on. It's not about Christmas. All right. It's about a heist. It's about thieves. It's about an ex-cop. You could take that movie and put any holiday you want. It could be Easter, it could be New Year's Eve, it could be a birthday party. The things that are locked into that movie, that as far as that are the Christmas elements in that movie, are so interchangeable that it is not a Christmas movie. Conversely, the Christmas Story, it's literally about Christmas. Charlie Brown's Christmas is about Christmas. The Grinch is about Christmas. National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is about Christmas. All right. It's a Wonderful Life is about Christmas. All right. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is about Christmas. And it is a seasonal movie. Die Hard is not a seasonal movie. Die Hard wasn't even released in, I think Die Hard was released in spring or summer of 87 or 88. 88. It's not a Christmas movie. They are at a Christmas party, but there are no narrative elements about the story that are Christmas, or any elements that are in the story that are at all are interchangeable to the point they are not relevant to it as a Christmas movie. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. All right, so let's go. I'm glad I was able to help there. I still disagree. Blue Beetle looked the same pedigree as Batman film or a Snyder Superman. Looked epic and had great soundtrack, high sales. The model you described, Marvel film, doesn't matter. Nobody fucking cares about Blue Beetle. I 100%. You are right. Every word, other than you disagreeing, because disagreeing with me is always wrong. Just kidding. Everything you said is right. It doesn't matter if no one cares. It doesn't matter if the perception of your product is as an also ran, or as disorganized or mismanaged, and you couple that with a character that nobody knows or care about in the general audience, not us geeks, because I already know that we care about them, but we're not enough. All right, we're not enough to save somebody's job if they drop 100 million, 200 million, plus 100 million maybe in budget, ad budget, and everything else going on. That's not enough. Us 3%ers aren't enough to prop that movie up. All right, Blue Beetle could be Scorsese. It could legit be Goodfellas level or Casino level. It wouldn't matter. There are a lot of movies that have all those elements, and a bomb. All right, and they bomb because the packaging is important. Getting you excited about this movie, getting you familiar about this movie. And how do you do that with a B character like Blue Beetle? Your other mainline movies are the ones that do it for you. The Talking Raccoon bombs. Him and the Talking Tree bomb without the MCU around it. I always say this, no matter how good you thought Guardians of the Galaxy is, or I thought Guardians of the Galaxy is, not only does Guardians of the Galaxy more than likely bomb, it doesn't even get made. All right? Because when you walk in to the investor's office and say, hey, I got this movie. It's about a talking raccoon, a talking tree, and this guy with these really cool soundtracks and everything else, they're going to be like, you know what? That sounds great, but I can't sell it to the majority of the world. But with Guardians of the Galaxy, they didn't have to. They had already been sold to the rest of the world via the MCU movies. So with Blue Beetle, if you had a solid established universe already running well, you put Blue Beetle on that, Blue Beetle does great. And if it's an awesome movie, it does even better. But you put them into the sea of what DC was prior to Discovery taking over, it just sinks to the bottom. Right? It just sinks. It's like having a fuel ship in the Navy out there on its own, but there's no aircraft carriers, there's no destroyers, there's nothing. It's out there on its own. There's nothing to see there. So it doesn't matter if any of those elements that you're saying are right if nobody cares, if nobody knows about the character and the perception of your brand as being an also ran. You have to change the culture. You have to change the atmosphere in order to release this movie and expect it to do anything but disappoint. All right. Chappie, just with the bad management, that was the old regime. Warner Brothers is the reason why they got bought out by Discovery, because I honestly think David Zaslav knew how bad the company was. Yeah, he took advantage. He took advantage of a devalued company that was devalued by $30 million, $30 billion. I'm thinking with a B, not an M. So yeah, it was so bad, not just DC. I mean, DC's a big part of it. It was so bad that, AT&T offloaded it. And like I said, that's bad for Discovery because they inherited a lot of debt with it, but they had a plan in place of what they wanted to do. So yeah, it's yeah, and this old regime was the one that was green lighting these movies out of order without any support movies, and then wondering why they weren't doing any particular type of number. So Kiki Speaker, yeah, I remember everyone thought it would be a joke. The new regime seems to be doing it the right way. Yeah, and people just got to be patient with them and think. Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, music man. It's just not. It's not a Christmas movie. All right, I'm gonna give you an example. You take Christmas out of A Christmas Story. The movies, there's no movies, there's no plot to the movie. You take Christmas out of Frosty the fucking Snowman. It's no Christmas movie. All right. You take Christmas out of Die Hard. It's still a movie about a heist. All right. It's still a movie about terrorism. The access point of Die Hard is not Christmas. That's just the setting. See, the setting does not make the theme of the movie. The setting is just the narrative part of the movie. You could, like I said, interchange that Christmas with anything else, the movie still goes. But if you do that to the movies I just mentioned, it's Christmas Story, Rudolph, Frosty, the movie, there's no movie. You see what I mean? And when you can do that, that means it's not a Christmas movie. So everybody in the chat who's saying Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and whoever will watch this on the replay, you're wrong. Sorry. All right, I can't wait to see what they're doing with Superman, and if they are King Speaker, if they are still doing that fan event in February mentioned a few months ago, and the film event a couple months after that event. I don't know. I don't think we're going to see that, and I don't, and I truly believe it's because at that point they will still be internalizing their plan and handing it off to Zaslav. I don't think. Um, I don't. I could be wrong, but with these new guys coming in, unless they have enough ready for us at that point, we're still it's all still new. So our heavy hitters are not. Blue Beetle looks like Black Adam generic. It will still, but not necessarily. Not necessarily. Worst movies have done great because they were in that pool of movies that were part of the brand. All right, there's a lot of generic Marvel movies that do well because they're within that brand. So it could be generic and it still could be successful. Captain Marvel was a generic movie. All right, it wasn't very good in my opinion, but it did well because of where it sat. That's all you need. The movie itself sometimes the circumstances could outperform the movie, and that's the case of Captain Marvel. The circumstances that Captain Marvel was released under outperformed the movie itself. The circumstances are better than the movie, and that could be the same thing for any of these movies. Black Adam was good enough where if you had it following a Superman movie or an Aquaman movie or just before the Flash movie or something like that, or within mix it around, but it's within arm's reach of some of your heavier IPs. Black Adam would have did just fine, or did better because it actually did all right. All right, it could have been Groundhog Day. Yeah, it could have. I mean, like I said, Die Hard could have been that. That would have been hilarious though. Him going through the air conditioning chutes with a groundhog. All right, Kinky is it's a man with a family during Christmas. It's a Christmas movie. Good. No, it's not. Once again, Kinky, take out Christmas and put in Easter. Take out Christmas and put in New Year's. Take out Christmas and put in his birthday or her birthday or one of the kids' birthdays. There's too many interchangeable elements about that's not about that. If I can interchange and substitute that aspect of the movie for something else, and the movie is still going to go on without a hitch, then it's not Christmas movie. Sorry. Are you saying I'm like old? I don't know what that means. Chappie, I will keep meaning to ask you about this, but what are your thoughts on Walter Amada going to Paramount, especially with horror now? That, to be honest, I think it fits better there than even. Yeah, somebody brought this up a couple weeks ago. I'm happy for him. That is his background. That is where his strengths are. A lot of what Hamada did wasn't necessarily his fault. He was brought into a bad situation. He really should have never been hired for DC Films to begin with. He was never a fit for DC Films. I don't think anybody in the company was a fit for the jobs that they were doing, and that's one of the reasons why they're gone. But he was part of that thing that didn't work. He may not have been the reason why things didn't work, but he was part of that team. And a lot of times if you ever watch sports, you see, when a coach gets fired, a lot of the coordinators and everything else, they get fired too. The GM wants his own people in there because he's looking at the situation. You may not have been the catalyst for all the problems, but you were still part of the problems, and I'm better off just moving on. And that's where I think Walter Amada got going. He's got a good reputation when it comes to horror, low budget horror, and you know what? A lot of us studios need that right now. He's with some other studio needs. He's not what DC Studios needed. All right, Anthony, getting hype over the posters that have been released for the Flash. Love how Andy Muschietti is rolling the haters with two idiots and a solar powered alien. Right? Yeah, there's just probably going to be a lot of trolling leading up to that. Blue Beetle. All right. Blue Beetle will make $1 billion at the box office, and the MCU, DC. Oh, geez. I mean, DC can have Blue Beetle as the head of the Justice League. I don't think that Blue Beetle is going to make $1 billion. I don't think that it's gonna. I think Blue Beetle, under the right circumstances, has a chance to make really good money because once again, people of color don't have it. There's not a lot of heroes out there for us to really relate to and identify with. So that's one of the elements that might help the fact that nobody knows who the hell Blue Beetle is. Once they see the actor and become familiarized with the star and his family and everything else, I think the Latino demographic will support this movie. But as far as making $1 billion goes, got it that the other half that makes that would push it over. I think right now you're looking at a $500-600 million movie, which would be phenomenal for an IP that nobody knows. Max, but you might also be dealing with a $400 million movie because, like I said, Shazam was a great movie. Shazam, I don't even know if Shazam broke 400 million. But if it had Shazam been released after a Batman movie or after a Superman movie, a connecting movie, you augment what Shazam could do. But as far as $1 billion goes, not even every Marvel movie that is connected to their universe makes $1 billion. I don't think any Thor movie has made $1 billion. All right, most Marvel movies in general don't make $1 billion. It's that we often keep talking about the fact that they have a lot of them that do, but the majority of their movies do not. And $1 billion movies are rare to begin with because it's really hard to do, especially now that you don't have China to rely on. I don't know what the goals are for Blue Beetle, what the internal goals are for Blue Beetle. I'm assuming the budget was low because it wasn't originally meant to. It wasn't produced for a theater, so your budget is probably going to be a cable or streaming budget. So maybe $4 or $5 million, $100 million might be more than profitable for it, depending on how much they spend on it. As far as and I know Todd's trolling me here, but like I said, I just don't see the elements there to push it up that high. But it all depends on what's going on. How are we going to feel in August of 2023 about DC Universe? All right. If we just saw a kick-ass Flash movie, if we just got an announcement about Cowboy Superman, if we just got some really kick-ass trailers about Aquaman, if we're feeling it, if we're in the rhythm of DC, nothing's off the table. I'm not saying $1 billion, but some really good money could be on the table just on those factors alone. Forget about the movie itself. Just on those factors alone. And then the movie being good will be the icing on the cake that could bring across the line. Yeah, and I hope that doesn't remind too many people those scarabs that are and beetles that are in that poster, because if anybody's seen The Mummy, you remember what those beetles did. Those scarabs did. They were carnivorous, and that was one of the most ridiculous things about The Mummy was the fact that they literally they would run across you and then leave bones in their path. I thought that was hilarious. It's bullshit, but it was still great. So yeah, I hope people don't get grossed out. Yeah, I love Todd trolling. Todd's fun. The Flash comes out in June of 2023, I believe. I believe Blue Beetle comes out in August of 2023. Let's see. I'm pretty sure because I actually asked our promoters. Blue Beetle release date August 18th, 2023. So the Flash comes out 2 months prior. So right there, right there. And if the Flash is what the Flash, the studio is hyped about it, you have a big name character. Nah, he's not Superman or anything, but you could have a Superman or Batman announcement right around in there. Because remember, Comic Con, you'll have you'll have the Flash. All right, and then I think you have the Flash the weekend of when is Comic Con this year? Comic Con this year is that same month. All right, so Comic Con 2023 is July 20 and 23rd. Okay, so now you have the Flash coming out on June 23rd. A month later, you have Comic Con, to where you can have all kinds of announcements on other things. And then a month after that, you have Blue Beetle. That is perfect placement. That is something that they have not been doing the past 8 or 9 years. You have a major movie, a major event, pop culture event, and then you have another movie. And then you still have Aquaman off in the distance, and then whatever announcements you have. All those factors before you even get into how good Blue Beetles is helps Blue Beetle tremendously. All right, there are no more Snyder Superman. It will be a traditional. There's no such thing as a traditional Superman. That's the thing, Todd. And I know you might be joking, but I hear this all around. No one knows what a traditional Superman is. There's no such thing as a traditional Superman. All right, and when people have tried to force a traditional Superman down their throat, then it looks cartoony, it looks cheesy, and it turns people off. So when it comes to, there can be traditional aspects about Superman, but what you got to understand is most of the people that will go see these movies are of a generation to where not a lot of that is going to matter to them. They're going to want to see their heroes reflect the world that they're living in as much as possible. All right, they're going to want to look around them, even though it's fantastical, it's superheroes, it's flying aliens and all that. It's most these movies are as successful as they are when the average man can, in some way, shape, or form, relate to them and the world that he lives in. And traditional Superman, a lot of times that means Christopher Reeve. We're not in 1980. All right, and I think Superman Returns paid the price for that nostalgia. So when it comes to traditional Superman, that's going to be up to James Gunn and Peter Safran. I hardly um, can believe that James Gunn is going to give you traditional anything. He's going to give you a relevant somebody, or he's going to hire somebody to give you a relevant, up to date personification of anything he's doing. That's just the way he rolls. Hey, Kinky, that just sounds wrong. just saying hey Kinky is not. If somebody didn't know Kinky Sphincter was one of our viewers right now and they just saw that, it'd be hilarious. All right, you underestimate the impact of a phenomenal trailer. Women went out to see Wonder Woman without seeing Batman v Superman. More people saw Aquaman than BVS, and MOS just needed a fire trailer. Okay, so I'm going to disagree with you on the top aspect. It wasn't just a trailer for Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman is one of the most, in fact, I'm going to go ahead and say it, the most iconic female superhero ever. Wonder Woman is the most legendary, the most widely known, iconic female superhero ever. Period. That alone not only gets you in the door, that gets you a lot further than just a trailer. Now, the trailers are good and everything else is good, but that brand name of Wonder Woman is why you even were given the time of day on that one. Us geeks, once again, we know the heart of Wonder Woman. We read all the stories. But to the general audience, just the fact that you have Wonder Woman out there, she is the most widely known, iconic female superhero of all time. So you can't, wasn't just a trailer. Just the mention of Wonder Woman is going to get you a lot farther. The trailer could be great, but once again, if people don't care about the IP, if women don't care about the IP, Atomic Blonde was a great movie with a great trailer and a great female lead. You know what? It didn't make 700, 800 million. Because not as many people cared about that IP as they're going to know Wonder Woman. Everybody knows Wonder Woman. That is the brand loyalty that you need to use when you're going into that. Now, as a part is more people saw Aquaman than BBS. But here's the thing: if it weren't for BBS and Man of Steel, those people aren't going to see Aquaman. It was the buildup. All right. It was the buildup. People always say, oh, well, after Zack Snyder left, they did $1 billion movie. The build up to Aquaman was already done. I mean, you wouldn't have been able to, if you would have put out an Aquaman movie like that, and remember, everything that made Aquaman a success came from Batman versus Superman, Man of Steel. Who casted him? All right. If it wasn't for Snyder, some other schlep would have casted a traditional other Baywatch besides Momoa, the blonde-haired, blue-eyed surfer dude, and they probably would have been chased out of their office. So you can't really say that, you can't, mention Aquaman's success without realizing that without those other two movies that even introduced that particular version of Aquaman into the atmosphere, you don't have Aquaman success. All right. So and the BBS made $871 million. Man of Steel in 678. It wasn't $1 billion, but once again, if you entered into these situations thinking that these movies right out of the chute with all their issues and legacy issues are going to make $1 billion, you deserve to be fired, and a lot sooner than you got fired. So I'm going to disagree with that top element. Phenomenal trailer or not, it's Wonder Woman. All right. Brand name recognition is a good percentage of your chances. The Flash. Okay. Yes, Todd, you were. Not necessarily. Here's another thing I wanted to bring up too. When all these people saying that Ezra's done, and they're not going to have him on the press tour and all this other shit. I'm calling at 12:58 a.m. on December 5th, 2022 bullshit. You know why? Because the prime example that I brought out, that I would bring up, marched out onto a football field after having 22 allegations leveled against him, some of which he's still settling in court, and Deshaun Watson. And he was being, hailed. He went out and had a great game. And I'm pretty sure people in Cleveland, wherever they were just happy to see him. And just goes to tell you, people do not give a fuck about this stuff. All right. As much as people who stare at YouTube and stare at Twitter and stare at some of these online trades. All right. The general public, for one, doesn't care. All right. Most of the general public does not know about what's going on with Ezra Miller. The ones who do know don't care. All right. And the ones who do care, only care about it to the month. Like, oh, wow, that's going on. Okay, great. All right. Our connection to these deities or these athletes or these superstars is one that does not require us to give a fuck about what they're doing in their personal lives unless they're being locked up for it. And even to that extent, they don't. All right. There are people who still followed R. Kelly all the way to the prison. All right. Robert Downey Jr. was in an orange jumpsuit getting, in an arraignment. The fans are not required to give a shit about what goes on in these people's lives. They're not. They're there for entertainment. You provide that entertainment, they're going to be fine. The press tour is going to be fine. I think Ezra is going to be on that press tour. And to be honest with you, if The Flash makes $1 billion or good money and he's perceived as being a part of it, money talks, bullshit runs really fast. Probably faster than The Flash. And I think you will see Ezra Miller. If now, barring him pulling a John Wayne Gacy and they pull up bodies from his house or something like that, or he goes full OJ. But if things stand that they are now, June is 7 months away. Nobody's gonna give a shit about this. They're gonna go see that movie, and if the movie has good word of mouth and a good volume of word of mouth, people are gonna keep going to see it. And the company's gonna be like, "Hey, we want to make a Flash too," and they're not gonna switch up the actor playing him. They're just not gonna do it. People can whine all they want to, but once again, when it comes to corporate Hollywood, it's that green that talks. They don't listen to whines; they listen to cash registers. All right, for integrity, Zach is coming back, and his story will be finished. Snyderverse will be started. Yeah, you got to it before he did. There you go. Die Hard 1 was released on July 15th, 1988, despite it's set in Christmas. So you're right about that. Yeah, it's just not a Christmas movie, man. Now, if you, as a consumer, want to make Die Hard a Christmas movie, and it's a movie that you watch every Christmas and it means that to you, that is 100% on you. That is your prerogative. That is 100% your prerogative, and you are well within your rights to do that. You could make any movie a Christmas movie. You can make Old Yeller a Christmas movie if you wanted to. It's what it means to you. On the definition of a Christmas movie that has been categorized as a Christmas movie, it's not one. But guess what? If them being at a Christmas party makes it a Christmas movie for you, then you're not wrong. I'm just screwing with you guys, but there is no Christmas is a sentimental holiday for people, and the moments and the hallmarks of Christmas are going to be different from one person to the other. So if Die Hard is a Christmas movie for you, then that's all that matters. I'm just having fun. It's not a Christmas movie. Todd, did James Gunn announce Snyder stuff coming back? I did not hear that. Nah, he didn't. And I know you're trolling, but no. But that's a serious question. I don't think he's going to. I think it's going to be quite a while, and I don't think he needs to. And I don't think for us Snyder pros or whatever the hell people call us, we don't need that right now. To be honest with you, what we need to do is we need to let this guy come in and get his feet settled and get his story settled and see where it goes. You know, I mean, we've won. All right, when it comes to the entire Snyder movement and the for the most part, we have gotten 75 to 80% of everything we were fighting about. Henry Cavill, I truly believe, they can make the announcements when they do, is Superman. The woman that Zack Snyder casted as Wonder Woman is Wonder Woman in cameos and in her own movie. The guy that Zack Snyder casted as the Flash is still going forward with the movie that that they set in motion while he was still there. Aquaman, the MILF magnet that he casted, even though everybody told him to cast somebody that looks like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy, the dolphin kisser from the comic, he casted Jason Momoa. So it's there. And Zack Snyder was never going to do 50 million movies. Now, what's missing for you guys, and I think this is where we can't see a win, where there is a win, is that we haven't gotten resolution to the Dark Side arc. But be honest with you, if this goes on, you're not going to be able to eventually tell too many stories that don't revolve around certain characters. I think we will eventually, somewhere down the line, get to that where it was left off in both the 2017 Disaster Justice League movie and Zack Snyder's Justice League. It leaves it to where it does not have to be revisited immediately. Who knows? Give them time. Give them a couple of years, maybe. The Dark Side story arc could very well be resolved, but let this guy get in the door and do his thing first, and see what he's working with first and see how he can weave that into, because if you're not going to replace, if you're going to go through this entire, all this work to maintain these actors and everybody in the position, if you do eventually hit Dark Side, why would you recast them? Why would you retell a story that's already been beautifully told? If he were going to do that, we would have new actors for everybody, Superman, Batman, everybody. We don't. So the fact that the hallmarks and the pillars of Zack Snyder's universe are already there in place and they're already being moved around and haven't been erased completely and recasted tells me at some point we could get that resolution. But for right now, we won. We got a continuation of the characters that we wanted. I want resolution to the major storyline, but you know what? That's because I hadn't had anything else in like 5, 6, 7 years because the old regime just didn't do shit. But if you come to me with a Kingdom Come, if you come to me with something epic that replaces what I lost, you know what? Probably more inclined to give you a benefit of the doubt. What the previous regime did is they scrapped what Zack Snyder was doing and they had no plan. If they would have come out with something that blew my socks off and that's like, holy shit, you're really going to do that? That's ambitious. You're going to put that on the screen? This is epic. Something that we could just stop talking about, they would have been better off, but they didn't. They didn't know what was good or bad, and they had no business pulling what was good. So there you go. He could be doing 20 Rebel movies. You know what? Ridley Scott's 85 years old. He does multiple movies per year, high-end multiple movies in a year. These guys are top-tier talent. They can walk and chew gum at the same time. And for the most part, they have production assistants. They have directors. They have other producers, especially the ones that own their own production companies like Zack Snyder does. I mean, literally, it's not like he's carrying a millstone up a hill. He's doing all the physical work himself. He has people that can work on it. He can set the groundwork. He can set the tone and the direction, and then he can executive produce and send people off, or he can direct it in parts. I've seen people when they're doing movies that are having heavy effects and they're working on multiple movies that'll be released over a 2-year period. They work from the same soundstage, they work from the same volume. Technology has made it to where just because you're committed to doing a one other project that you cannot do another. People are way too creative for that. Too much money being left on the table for them to take that approach. So just because you hear somebody, oh, he's working on this, no way you could do that. That's for fucking idiots like us. That's for Z-listers like you and me and the people who can work a job and barely take care of our dog. That's for us. But they are not us. They do not, they have more resources to do multiple things than we do. They have more support to do multiple things we do. I couldn't do more than 2 things at once. I walk and chew gum, I'll trip over my feet. But I'm not Zack Snyder. I'm not James Cameron. I'm not Ridley Scott. These people can do multiple on top of multiple programs and projects at a time. That's not a problem at all. People think didn't like Black Adam. I thought it was a good action movie. I was surprised. I think that if you do an autopsy of Black Adam and you look at not just Black Adam, but like I said, if you look at the brand of DC, you're asking people to come to a movie that they've never heard about based on just Dwayne Johnson. And people thought that was enough. And in some cases, it may have been enough. But if you take that same movie, even with all of its flaws, and if you put Black Adam in the same date release that you're putting Blue Beetle, Black Adam does fine. Black Adam exceeds what it needed. All right, but you put it out and people are like, this is the hope for DCU. Black Adam's going to save DCU, and everybody just has to make $1 billion or DCU is dead. Like, shut up. All right, Black Adam should have never been put in a position like that. So it's all management. All right, Kinky, you take Christmas out of Elf, and it's some creepy grown adult. Yes, and Will Ferrell on top of that. So. Ooh, starting to get parched. All right. Oh, you got Miles Morales. He's mixed Afro Latino. Aquaman was a Pacific Islander and thought of as a joke. $1 billion. Blue Beetle can do it if it just. No, dude. Okay. I no, I don't think so. Could be wrong, and I would love to see it, but Aquaman is Aquaman. Even though Aquaman is a joke, the guy from Super Friends that got tangled up in the netting in the soda canister thing had a meme nickname after him. He is a joke, but he's a joke that people know. You don't have to take him seriously to know what he is. Everyone knew who Aquaman was, and he was in 2 previous movies, before that, and even with Justice League, the 2017 version being a shitstorm that it was, he was still in that movie. The MILFs don't even know what Zack Snyder is. They know who Jason Momoa is. They know who Jason Momoa is out there with no shirt on. They know Jason Momoa is, they're going to see that movie no matter what. And BBS, Justice League, even that shitty version of it, helped propel the MILFs into Aquaman. So it took those movies and him being introduced in those movies to get that movie. And remember, each movie that was being put out, with the exception of the screw up that was Justice League, was increasingly headed towards that destination anyway. All the prior management had to do is just let it happen, and they didn't. So here you go. Yeah, 90 million, that's nothing. So Blue Beetle really doesn't have to make. If Blue Beetle makes 500-600 million, you figure, okay, let's say the budget for Blue Beetle, I hope it's big because that means I get a bunch of cool ass posters like that for our promo. Let's say the budget for Blue Beetle is 100 million. I don't think it'll be that high, but just as argument's sake, it's 100 million, right? So 200 million, really, if it pulls in 500-600 million, it's fine. That's fine. And then you'll make your Blu-ray and your video on demand and all that. I think you'd be fine right there with that. And if it makes more, great. Let's let's see. Chappie, no doubt in my mind that DC heads James Gunn and Peter Gavin now probably bringing back Dark Side Story in some capacity in the future. I do believe that too, because he's just too big of a character. And fortunately, where it was left, where both versions of Justice League left it, it's in a spot to where you can move on to all these other things that they want to do and revisit it whenever you want to, if you want to. Yeah, dude, I wish I could show. It's like Piranha. It's like when you watch a piranha movie and the girls are swimming in the thing and the piranhas way past them. The bunch of school piranhas just way past them, and all you see is skeletons floating. That's bullshit, but it's still cool, and that's what those beetles did. Those beetles would be chasing people down, and when they caught them, they would just, as they moved all over them and they moved away, all you were left with was a bare dry skeleton, and it's cool, So. All right. I think DC should focus on only JL popular members, the era of audience eating up random superhero. I would agree, but it's already out there. I mean, this is the movie that they inherited. If I agree, if I were running DC at the time, you wouldn't see a Black Adam movie yet. You wouldn't see a Blue Beetle movie yet until you saw a Superman, Batman, and all these B and C characters would be introduced through the A-listers, so that you get a connection with them, and then we see how they do. Just like Justice Society, a lot of people like Justice Society. You'll see more of them. But a lot of these things that you bring in through these movies, I think Black Widow wasn't brought in her own movie. She was brought in the Captain America movie, I believe. And there's, Loki was brought in through Thor. So people will can connect with these B and C tier characters as long as you're bringing them in through the Trinity and through the big players. But if you don't, if you just throw out a Black Adam, if you just throw out a Blue Beetle out there, it's going to sink like a rock. Or it could potentially sink like a rock. Yes, he is. I agree 100%. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just waiting to see what he gives me. Yeah, I like most versions of Superman in general. It's like I just want one that's appropriate for this era. You know what I mean? Yeah, as I was saying, Snyder casted Ezra. At this point, when it comes to other allegations and things like how much do we care about this one? Be honest with you, if we start getting into that realm with the amount of information that was put out about Ezra, I think it's stupid. Now Kevin Spacey's different. When they're going through the legal system and there's things coming out in the legal system that in R. Kelly, things like that, when you're going through the legal system. But a lot of the times, most of these guys have these run-ins and these skirmishes and stuff like that. And if we put ourselves in a position of where these things that are the level of what Ezra is accused of, we won't watch anybody, because I guarantee you half the athletes that you're watching are doing worse. I guarantee you 25% of the actors that you're watching are doing worse. Nobody knew Army Hammer was doing until it got exposed. So it's all different. Yeah. What's so infuriating to me is there's a fight. Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman being a profit and made really good money at the box office. It still wasn't enough for the guys at Old Dream. Yeah, because they were trying to drive their own compact vehicle while looking at the Marvel vehicle, and they crashed. All right, there are certain things that apply that Marvel use that you can apply in other places, but for the most part, Marvel formula works for Marvel. Marvel, Kevin Feige, and all the people who make his movies sat down and they took a very long look at what characters that they had, what were their strengths, what were their weaknesses, and how they could exploit those into a general audience. They did what they did, for their characters, and it works with their characters and the audience that they knew that they had and developed. DC should have done the same thing. All right, DC did not do the same thing. They were trying to develop DC films through the Marvel lens, and it was always doomed to fail. Marvel characters are one thing. DC characters, now you have to do that same deep dive into your IPs and your characters, and you have to understand that, okay, I have a character unlike anything in MCU has ever had, other than Human Torch and Namor and Captain America, which didn't work. We preceded Marvel Comics, but you have characters in DC Comics that have literally in some cases, great grandparents who picked up the comic. You have 3, 4 generations, and you have to take a look at your characters and pick which one that you want to go with. And you do that knowing that it's going to be divisive, knowing that you're going to get people shitting in their diapers because it's not their Superman. Once you take on the task of making superhero movies with your characters that have affected far more generations than Marvel Comics has, you need to understand and put on your big boy pants and be able to take the hits and the criticisms that are coming. And you need to be able to do that while keeping an eye on the people who are grasping onto what you're doing. Because what happened is everybody that made Man of Steel $678 million got ignored. Everybody that made BBS, the movie that came after that's $871 million, got ignored. The only people that voices got heard during that whole mess were assholes, critics, and at the time, Marvel marks, and it was real bad then, who were never going to see the movie. Everybody but us. Everybody got a word in the conversation, but the people who paid to see the movie, the people who took new people to see the next movie, all right, and the people who had you put out a proper Justice League would have taken that movie and probably made even more, and we would have kept going. All right, so the difference there is that Marvel had a plan and they committed to it, and not their plan didn't all go great. I mean, there were some things, you Thor Dark Worlds in there. So, but what happened is they put their plan out. The people who hired the people to put that plan out stuck with those people, and they didn't flinch. DC flinched, and they shouldn't have. And that's the thing is when you're making that money and that money's increasing, money talks. Everything else is bullshit. Oh, the critics didn't like it. Fuck the critics. Critics, I have yet to see a critic pay one power bill. All right. I've yet to see one Marvel mark that thinks he's getting a check, or thought in 2016 he was getting a check from Disney for bashing movies that were 3, 4, or 5 months away from coming out. Have any positive effect on anything. All right. So the biggest thing that the previous regime failed to do was listen to the right people. If they would have listened to the right people and you know what, make an knowledge brand, say, hey, you know what, this movie wasn't for you. We'll listen to you, and where we can make improvements and head your way, we will. But the bulk of the people that enjoyed this movie, we're going to capitalize on that. We're going to build on that. They weren't smart enough to build on what Man of Steel brought them. They weren't smart enough to build on what Superman or Batman versus Superman brought them. And it led them to the disaster that was Justice League. And you know what? Every single one of those guys that was involved in that has been removed from the company. And it's not by accident. Alejandro, no Christmas party, no heist. No, that's not true. Like I said, I can replace Christmas with her birthday, because he could come out and see her for that, or the kids' birthdays. I can replace the Christmas party with the birthday party. I can replace all the Christmas elements with something else. Yeah, it's that easy. All right, Kinky, we didn't. We did win the end of Williams. That's wow. One of these days I'll be able to talk. Zack Snyder's Justice League release. Zack's characters are back except for Ray Fisher, unfortunately. And who knows? I'm not guaranteeing that he was coming back, but if the playing field was ever there for Ray Fisher to come back, it would be now. I don't think Ben was ever going to come back fully, no man. I think Ben could come back and do his own solo stuff and do cameo appearances. Because remember, in Justice League, one of the Justice Leagues, he's dead. He died. I mean, he dies, I think, 2 or 3, but he would be in Justice League 2, but people say, well, he's got his own production coming. I'm like, okay, he's the boss. Yeah, he works for himself. He can do whatever the fuck he wants to. If he wants to, do this again, he can. I think a lot of it is if the project means something to him, and he's assured that he's not going to have to deal with the nonsense that was in the with the other regime. He's Ben Affleck. He's the Academy Award winner, and once again, people are like, he's too busy. Him and Matt Damon are doing this. Like I said, they're not morons that we are. All right, they are not the one-dimensional dummies that populate the majority of the world. That can only do one thing, because basically we're not paid $50-60 million to do multiple things. These guys make a lot of money to do multiple projects. If they couldn't do multiple projects and work with different production companies, they probably wouldn't be as successful as they are. So despite what Ben Affleck is doing with anything else, if he wants to come back and play Batman, that's it. I don't think anyone's going to say no to him, and there's nobody to stop him. It's a matter of where he's at in his life. Does he feel? Remember, when he stopped doing Batman, he was in a bad place in life. He's got J Lo now. All right, I mean, come on. He's got J Lo. He's got a new management crew in DC if he wants to work with them. And to be honest with you, if he decides that he doesn't want to do it, then and if you still want to tell stories in that universe, then you can recast him. But only if he doesn't want to do it. If he wants to do it, let him. So I don't know if he would come back. I just don't know how he feels about it. That's just I can't give you that answer, Macy. All right, because these guys wanted to make $1 billion from the very beginning and being so butthurt over a couple bad critics reviews and Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah, that's basically what happened. I can't sum it up any better than you did there, Chappie. All right. Let's see. Let me see if I missed what you said. Yeah. Yeah, that's hilarious. Yes, please like and stream. There are 30 of you in the chat. Thank you. 25 now. I guess some people do as well. All right. Following Yee's comments regarding Hitler, Nazis, and Jews, it's Superman. Is Superman Jewish according to his creators? Superman is ambiguous. His creators were both Jewish, and a lot of the comic book characters of that era were Jewish. Stan Lee was Jewish. Jack Kirby was Jewish. Bob Kane was Jewish. I mean, there was a lot. There's a lot of the people who made some of the biggest characters in comics were Jewish. They never explicitly said what ethnic group Superman was, because back then you would not have been able to publish it. Same reason why you weren't able to get the type of stories that Stan Lee really wanted to tell in the early 60s until the late 60s, because not segregation, but just the kind of prejudices that were existing 50, 60 years ago would not have allowed it. Superman is created by two Jewish men, Joe Shuster and Jerry Siegel, but they mainly created him to be an everyman because they felt themselves, even as Jewish, the same way I feel as being Black American, were part of the country. So they created a character that could be anyone. And so, and as far as got Kanye or Ye's, listen, man, how hard is it to denounce anti-Semitism? How hard is it to just say it's evil? I never thought. I never thought I'd have to. It's not a debate for me. It's half of 450,000 Allied soldiers died fighting in Germany and fighting in World War II. I don't. How hard is it just not to associate yourself with that train of thought? That's just me. Maybe because I'm a hopeless optimist when it comes to all these things, but yeah, and it's funny. All this talk is funny. It's funny on Saturday Night Live and all this stuff, just so somebody gets hurt. All right, because these words mean something. We've seen in the last decade that words are the push that a boulder needs to make its way down a hill and do a lot of damage. Superman did not flee persecution though, so he fled I don't even know if they were using that as a metaphor, because even though the two men that wrote him were Jewish, like I said, they were also Americans. They were also Jewish. They were first generation, first gen. So they were telling an American story, just like if I write one, they were telling an American story. I don't think they were telling a historical biblical story in that sense. Not at that point, at least not with him fleeing his planet. It's different between freeing an environment where you are historically enslaved and being, your planet blowing up. So that I don't know. I said both men are long dead. I couldn't ask him, but all the research that I've ever done on Superman, they wrote those stories. they were thinking about what was going on in Europe. All these guys, including Stan Lee, when they created these heroes, because remember at the time that these heroes were being created, we weren't in World War II. We didn't know what was going on. The average Joe on the street did not know what was going on in Europe in regards to the Holocaust and everything else. They knew because they had family members. Like I said, most of these guys were first generation. So they had people back in the old country that could tell them that was going on, write letters to that was going on. And they knew what was going on. In many ways, these stories, and a lot of them were fighting the Nazis in their earliest incarnations. Captain America, Torch, Neymar, all these guys were fighting the Nazis because it was their way, narratively, of striking back against something that was the evil of their time, and that no one else was really, really believing that was going on. It wasn't until later in the war where you could not deny what was going on, to where it started reaching the average American. And these guys had been writing about all that stuff prior to that. So, but no, I don't think that's a parallel there, because one's bringing persecution, the other one's planet blowing up. But I guess it's at this point, 80 years later, it's up to the reader. All right, Torin Prima, nice to have you here. I think Ben would be more than comfortable coming back, considering his new WB team, and considering Henry is back and Ben enjoyed working on the Flash. It's just a matter of time. I do too. I say that's why I keep saying, if you continue to improve the environment, people are watching. Creators are watching. As the environment improves, I think people will gravitate closer to you. All right, not to get off topic, did we have one? But out of curiosity, do you think in some way these movements, especially the Me Too, squandered their opportunity to get people who are truly evil behind bars? Only if the movement is it's not just the people who are bringing up the case. I think every credible case during the Me Too movement should have been brought up. But the problem with the Me Too movement is not the movement itself. It's that the Me Too movement is just the first part of a problem. If you accuse somebody of doing something like that, whether you love or hate the person, that person has a Fourth Amendment right. That person gets their day in court. All right, there's due process involved. And what was happening in some cases during the Me Too movement, we weren't letting that process take place. Al Franken. I mean, there's all kinds of situations where just the accusation alone could have sunk some people. And I'm not saying that the people who are being accused weren't guilty of things, but once you make the accusation, there needs to be a process in place, due process. I've always said this: serial killers who admit they did it on live TV get due process. Anybody accused of anything should get that due process, and that's with any movement. Whether you once you make the accusation, you have a right to make the accusation and have it follow through, but that person has a right to the process allowed to him too. And I don't think it was happening in certain instances. A lot of times, just your name being associated to an allegation was enough to destroy your career, and that's not fair. So I think any type of movement has to be done in a way that respects the rights of both individuals involved. Due process is the ultimate equalizer for me. And okay, Chappie. Honestly, but Zack Snyder Justice League was release date in theaters back in 2017. Obviously, probably would have made over $1 billion. Yeah, I don't think it would have been a 4-hour movie, but it would have been a better continuity. It would have been a better continuation. I think it would have done well. So, all right, guys, did I cover all of my topics? Oh yeah, we hit on Marvel Studios. Marvel Studios has things going on. I was going to bring on an article, but I'm starting to fade. They're refining phases 5 and 6. They are going to review things, and like I was saying before at the beginning of the stream, I think that that's great. I think the Marvel, I call it the MCU Marvel Clutter Universe. Yes, there are some great movies in there, but there's just too much waste. And my time is valuable. And with Disney Plus, there's a lot of the stuff that's coming up in phase 5 and 6 that I hadn't planned on seeing in a movie theater. All right, it's just I will pick and choose after watching all the previous of the Vinity Saga. I'm going to pick and choose which ones deserve the cinematic experience, and I'll go see those. But I think there's just too much clutter. I look at the story that they're telling, and I guarantee you they can tell that story with like 5 or 6 less movies. But I don't need. I be honest with you, I don't need Ant-Man to tell a Kang story. You can do it that way, but when you're doing that, remember that salad I told you about, where everything is in it. Eventually, if you put everything in the bowl, you're gonna pour something in there. It's gonna taste like shit, and it's gonna ruin the whole meal. And right now, it's just becoming exhaustive. It's just becoming exhaustive. Ordeal sometimes, and then you're starting to run into problems simple because it is so interconnected. Where something like Black Adam, not Black Adam, but Blade, being delayed can shift a whole lot of things. And when one movie can do that to you, maybe it's time to think about cutting the fat and just getting to the point. I love the King storyline, but I don't think you need a lot of the stuff that they're leading up. I think Secret Wars is going to be a mess, most of which I'll see on Disney Plus. So yeah, so we hit on that, and let's see. So I don't know all the details of all these, so I don't want to go into them here. But once again, everything you're addressing here, Music Man, is can be solved if we just apply the same rules to everybody. Like I said, we have Charles Manson got due process. Richard Ramirez literally admitted that what he did, he got due process. So if guys who we know are about to waste millions of dollars in trial and court money get due process, then these guys who they have a right to bring their case to court without it being destroyed in public. And if the court and if the system says, "Hey, we found sufficient amount evidence that you have done this," then that's where we start, going by that narrative. But like I said, I just think a lot of the times when we see any legal thing in the news or on Twitter or on Facebook or on YouTube, we start making assumptions and we are not qualified. Just with the Ezra Miller thing, going back to that, the average fan is not qualified to make a judgment or assessment on Ezra Miller because they don't know everything, and they will probably never know anything. And if it never reaches the court, you'll never know anything beyond that. We're going on bits and pieces and hearsay and this and that and reading into court filings and a lot of people don't even know what goes into a court filing and what a court filing means, but they use that as like, oh, it's over for Ezra. Like I said, most of the people and most YouTubers and most Twitter heads in general prove on a daily basis how unqualified they are to judge anybody. All right. And most of them don't have even the rudimentary level of legal thinking. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I know the Fourth Amendment is very important and it applies here. I know what hearsay is. I know what I know what proof and I know what evidence is when it's presented. And so far, a lot of these things are bereft of all that. So I think all we could do as fandom is sit back and let the people who are qualified do their jobs. Let the jury look at the evidence. Let the prosecution prosecute the case. Let the defense lawyer mount a defense. And we are not part of that process unless we get selected for the jury. No. Once Uncle Sam's team was sent home by the Netherlands, I stopped watching. And I'm just not a big soccer guy. I only watch the World Cup if the U.S. has a chance, And I knew this year didn't have a chance, but it's always exciting. I'm a patriot when I get to see that. I got a lot of issues with Qatar and the way the whole World Cup process happens, and it's really hard to enjoy it sometimes when you know it's kind of just what it is. So, all right, guys, I think I covered everything. I think I covered the Blue Beetle, covered the Flash, covered Marvel Studios, and like I said, this was just going to be a brief overnighter just to make up for the fact that I wasn't on the air last night. So, and I am really, 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 really super tired. So, all right, thank you guys for showing up. I gave you an hour and a half, and I did what I was supposed to do on Saturday, which is shepherd you from one night to the other. I have shepherded you from December 4th into what is now December 5th. And once again, thank you guys for bringing the topics, bringing the questions, listening to me ramble as long as I did. You are the most important part of this entire YouTube experience. So, that's about it. And yeah, I'm looking at myself on the screen. I look like shit. Okay, even more so. But yeah, all right, I'm gonna go get some sleep. Thank you guys for being here, and I will try to be back on the air sooner than later. Our normal shows are Friday 6:30 Sci-Fi Center Live, and then the overnight show which will be back on Saturday. And then we got a couple other things that we're working on too. We're going to get back into the Sci-Fi Center Presents saddle and start producing some stuff there, and start producing stuff on our own channel. So until then, let me make sure I get this off of here. If there's nothing else, and I don't think there is, we are done, guys. Bye.